Hello, this is Mark from the Swamp School, here to tell you about a new and innovative program the Swamp School has developed called Mitigation Banking for Fun and Profit. This program is specifically targeted at private sector mitigation banking, and it's a new and innovative land development program. It is excellent for the all too common distressed properties that we find out there, and it is an opportunity to help the environment and at the same time make a couple bucks. So where did this all get started? Well, in March '08, the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers announced some new rules. They were particularly focused on the continuation of the no net loss of wetlands, which goes back prior to that, and increasing the effective use of wetland mitigation banks, primarily private mitigation banks was the focus, and then also strengthening the requirements for the use of in-lieu fee mitigation, and this was basically to level the playing field between the private banks and the in-lieu fee programs that various states and local governments may have had. This appeared in the Federal Register in April of '08, and this is a shot of the cover of it. It's Part 40 CFR Part 230, if you want to look it up. So what does all this mean? Well, primarily the goal here was to promote private banks, to get the entrepreneurial spirit of the American people into this program and hold in-lieu fee programs to the same standard as private banks, and that's essentially what the rules are. It also helped the private sector banks tremendously because it put in timetables, which expedited the whole process. So how can the Swamp School help you out? Well, we have developed a turnkey program. We basically break this out into its component parts, but it starts with the site. We need to have a good site, and if you have a good site, you have a good return on investment. If you have a great site, you have a great return on investment. We look at a lot of different things. We look at enterprise areas, business development zones, urban areas, but all based upon a watershed approach, but we're looking for areas slated for growth. We then enter into a feasibility study, and as you can see here, we've got kind of a funnel of different types of projects. This goes beyond the wetland projects and can include buffer projects, stream projects, and so forth. Our team of experts, which includes surveyors, scientists, engineers, architects, and hydrologists, and the like, take a look at all of these projects, and we compare this also to the land costs, engineering design costs, construction estimates, operation and maintenance costs, how many credits can we get out of this, and what is our service area. So this is all going to be part of the initial feasibility study. We then develop a prospectus, which is nothing really more than a business plan. We come up with a conceptual design. We interact with the agencies on this approach, so we've at this point contacted the Corps of Engineers, and then in turn they have contacted EPA, Fish and Wildlife Service, various state, local governments, tribal governments, whoever might be involved in the project or around the project for a resource protection agency, and we run it through the process, and we just kind of crank it through the mill and see whether or not we have a suitable project that's going to satisfy all the parties. Once this has been developed, we come up with what's called a mitigation banking instrument, and this serves basically as the company or the business plan of the total project. It's a legal document. It includes a conservation easement, and it will also reference the project designs. How are we going to maintain this over time? So what are the O&M procedures? Who is going to hold the short-term conservation easement? Is there going to be a long-term conservation easement? And then it's also going to establish all the accounting procedures associated with this project. Once we get through the paper side of things, we actually have to put something in the ground, so that's where we get into the implementation. So we go back to the engineering design. We want to make sure everything is built as designed. This is going to include survey. We're going to do construction estimating along the way, so make sure that we're getting the best value engineering we can out of the project. And then we also want to make sure green side goes up, so we're going to include the construction supervision as well, so that we can keep an eye on what we've designed on paper is actually being implemented in the field. Now, after the project has been completed, there's generally a 5-year monitoring requirement, and this is a performance standard type monitoring. So we have certain goals that were set out in the prospectus and then also in the mitigation banking instrument, and we're going to make sure that we meet those requirements. This is going to require some repair and replacement of plant material or structures or whatever, and we've planned for that. We are going to submit an annual monitoring report, usually to the Corps of Engineers, but this could also include other resource agencies. They certainly would be copied on it, but it's an annual monitoring report, and hopefully we've met those performance standards, and that is the goal of the program. Now, of course, somewhere along the line we have to make some money to pay for all of this, and this is where we really shine in our program. We basically work with the client to identify potential credit clients. Now, the Corps of Engineers and sometimes the state does know that your project exists. However, given the marketing aspects of this, they may not remember your particular project. So we want to keep in front of them and let them remind them that we do have a bank and that it's in operation, because there is by statute a bias and preferential treatment of private sector banks over any other real program. So if there is a private bank in a particular watershed, that is supposed to be the first stop that a potential credit client would go to. So we have that by statute. So we want to make sure that they remember that we have a project. Well, this could include a number of marketing approaches, including some internet sites, networking with clients and so forth. But we're trying to make sure that your credit sales are out there in front of the potential clients, the development clients primarily, so that they know that you have credits available. And we will also work with local planning groups, with chambers of commerce, business development organizations, and so forth, so that they're aware that there's a program out there for them, so that if they're trying to attract business to their particular area, we have basically expedited any potential environmental issue that they might run into as far as mitigation goes. So that's already in place in that particular community, which greatly helps them try to develop some of these enterprise zones. Now, we also have to keep track of how these credit sales are bought and sold and where they go, and this is where the accounting procedures are included. Now, these accounting procedures is separate and apart for the monitoring report, but it's usually generally given to the Corps on an annual basis, so they see what permits have been issued against what credits, and we take care of that. And so we produce this annual credit release report. Ultimately, the project will finish. Generally, we try to move all of the credits that are generated annually, so that we basically have the project essentially selling out every year. Hopefully that happens. But we also have to identify a long-term land steward. Because these projects are supposed to be monitored in perpetuity, we have to identify somebody who can handle it in perpetuity. And this could be a state agency, it could be a qualified nonprofit, and it could also be some local government entity. But it basically has to be somebody that has got the financial wherewithal to stand the test of time. Now, we also usually include an endowment with the land steward agreement, so that there is money available, so that this landholding entity has money to assume the long-term maintenance costs. For example, if we installed a gate or something like that and it had a 30-year lifespan, well, what do we do after 30 years? We have to replace the gate. There has to be money for that. We also include in this the conservation easement changes, if there's any change in ownership of the conservation easement and so forth, and that's all part of the project closeout, so we have that as well. So putting it all together, as you can see, we running from left to right, we start out first identifying a suitable project, then we move into the prospectus, and it starts out as a draft prospectus, and then ultimately into a prospectus, which then morphs into a mitigation banking instrument, includes lots of legal documents. That ends up becoming the actual basis of the bank. We basically what we call an operational bank, and we enroll new sites, we sell credits however we want to work it, and eventually once we have retired all of the credits, we retire the bank, and this goes to the long-term land steward and is closed out. So we want you to get started on this. How do you learn more? Give us a shout at 1-877-479-2673. Press 3 for our consulting department, and that'll get you through to our sales group, and you'll be able to find more information about this program on our website, swampschool.org. Drop us a line, give us a call. We are definitely here to help and help you with your projects. So thanks a lot, and take care.